I'm going to start this video by explaining Pokemon, which I don't feel like I have to do because, well, at this point, who doesn't know about Pokemon? The franchise has been around for so long that the kids who are playing the games now are most likely the children of people who grew up playing the original Game Boy games. It's become so culturally ubiquitous through the cartoons, trading cards, and merchandise that you don't even need to have played the games to know what Pokemon is. But for the sake of argument, let's pretend that you don't. So, Pokemon. Pocket Monsters. A game where you catch monsters and put them in your pocket. That's essentially it. When the series first premiered with Generation 1, Pokemon didn't have gender. That is to say, the creatures known as Pokemon didn't have gender. With the notable exception of Nidoran and its evolutionary line, and gender-coded Pokemon like Jynx and Kangaskhan, most Pokemon in the games were essentially genderless. You could catch any Pokemon and give it whatever name or gender identity you wanted. You want to make your Magmar a girl boss and call her Ember? You could do that. Now that all changed in Generation 2, which, like Victorian England, introduced the concept of the gender binary. Now the Pokemon you caught could either be male or female, with some Pokemon being only one gender. Better yet, if you left two Pokemon of different genders at the daycare center, if they were friendly enough with each other, they could produce an egg. This opened up a whole world of possibilities through Pokemon breeding, as hatched Pokemon possessed unique stats and moves depending on their parents. Problem was, breeding Pokemon proved to be a real case of trial and error. With the notable exception of pairing two of the same Pokemon, or pairing a Pokemon with a Ditto, unless you had a guide, there was no way to know which Pokemon were compatible with each other. You just had to drop two Pokemon off at the daycare center, cross your fingers, and see if they produced an egg. Again, that all changed in Generation 3 with the introduction of egg groups. Egg groups took the guesswork out of breeding. Now Pokemon were classified by what other Pokemon they could breed with. As long as they were in the same egg group, they could make an egg together. But even then, there were some eye-raising discrepancies. For instance, you probably never assumed that a Skitty and a Wailord were compatible with each other. After all, they're a cat and water-type Pokemon. So do you imagine they'd get along as well as, well, a real cat and water? But while Wailord is part of the Water 2 egg group, interestingly enough, it's also part of the Field egg group, which is the exact same group as Skitty. And yes, you can produce an egg from them. People have tested this out. And as can be expected, this odd pairing has made for plenty of memes. So here you have a Skitty, a small pink house cat, and a Wailord, a whale that weighs approximately 877 pounds. What happens when you pair these two seemingly polar opposites together? Well, you get the webcomic I'll be discussing, Tinder Skitty.
I gotta say, when you told me he was a big guy, you weren't kidding.
Yeah, I was kind of a shock at first. Not gonna lie.
My knees hurt.
Created by artist Aaron Schmidt, Tinder Skitty is an unofficial webcomic set within a world of anthropomorphic Pokemon. The comic is about a Skitty and Wailord who hook up together over Tinder, start dating each other, and discover that they love each other very, very much. And that's essentially the comic in a nutshell. It's about an odd couple that you wouldn't imagine getting along well, but not only do they get along well, but they actually love each other. Like, a lot. They love each other very, very much. Some comic strips are just them doting on each other and looking cute together. And that's it. That's the entire comic. That's the entire gist of it. Short, sweet, and simple. So, what more can I say? Well, a lot, but in order for me to do so, I have to delve into some feminist and queer theory. That's right. Come for the cute Pokemon, stay for the socio-political analysis. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, the word of the day is heteropessimism, also known as heterofatalism. You may not have heard the word before, but if you've ever seen a family sitcom or a comedy routine by a middle-aged comedian, you're more than familiar with the concept. And now, here's the winning formula for a popular sitcom. Step 1. Start with male and female human. Make the differences very important. Step 2. Give them different toys, goals, mindsets, and expectations. Step 3. Convince them they're from completely different worlds. Boys will be boys. Don't cry like a girl. Step 4. Congrats! You've created an unlimited source of content for unfunny sitcoms about couples miscommunicating. We're Miserable, starring Hot Nagging Wife and Lazy Lying Husband. Weeknights on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus. Paramount Plus! We have Star Trek and nothing else. Heteropessimism, also known as heterofatalism, is a term coined by writer Asa Sorensen in her 2019 article in The New Inquiry. As The Conversation explains, heteropessimism is an attitude of disappointment, embarrassment, or despair at the state of heterosexual relations, specifically about being in one. It's a pervasive disappointment, ambivalence, if not doubt, about the quality of the lived heterosexual experience. Or, as Marriage.com explains more frankly, it's the belief that heterosexual relationships are inherently flawed and bound to fail. Essentially, we as a society, mostly in the West, have, for the longest time, recognized heterosexual relationships as the one and only relationship goal that everyone should aspire to. Yet, simultaneously and paradoxically, we as a society also seem to collectively believe that actually being in a relationship is one of the worst things ever. Because, you know, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, and thus the sexes are always in eternal conflict with each other, yet you still need to be in a relationship because you won't be whole without your other half, and yet once you do decide to get married, it will be a miserable experience because your husband will be a lazy slob, and your wife will be your ball and chain, because women, am I right, fellas?
People say, how do you stay married for 41 years? Here's the secret. My wife and I go to a romantic restaurant twice a week. A little candlelight, a little wine. She goes Tuesdays, I go Fridays.
Ultimately, the downfalls of heterosexuality come from the downfalls of gender. One of my patrons made a good point, and it was about men who incessantly joke about hating their wives. And it's a small example of internalized toxic masculinity. It's not manly to express your feelings, to show affection. Fellas, is it gay to love your wife?
But buying a Valentine's Day gift for your wife a month early is the gayest thing you could do.
And, like, I get it, relationships are messy, and conflict is inevitable and makes for great entertainment, but even then, with the way most heterosexual relationships are overwhelmingly depicted in media, it gives off the impression that these relationships are inherently dysfunctional and toxic. That conflict is less of a bug, and more of a feature. Tinder Skitty doesn't have this problem. For one, the strips rarely feature any conflict, just these two lovebirds, or rather, love Pokemon, being cute together. And whenever there is conflict, it's never between the two characters. Usually the conflict arises either from Wailord's comedically large size, or from an outside source like this creepy toxic rogue.
Excuse me, but would you kindly piss off?
Little kitty's got some claws on her. Is this guy giving you trouble, sweetie? Oh, snap.
In fact, the only conflict between these two was in one strip, where they were having an argument over which one has the cutest face. This comic, it's just so wholesome, you guys. It's just so good. It's just so good! As such, Tinder Skitty usually avoids the same tired tropes too commonplace in romantic comedies and sitcoms, and when it does implement these tropes, it's to pleasantly subvert them. For example, take this strip where Wailord gets hit on by this hot, sexy Ninetales.
Sorry to bother you, but I couldn't help but wonder. You're a pretty cute guy, and I wanted to know if you were single.
We've seen this trope before. Male character gets hit on by other female character, male character flirts back, then his significant other finds out and gives him all hell for it. So we all know what to expect from this scenario. But thankfully, and quite pleasantly, Wailord does this instead.
But I'm already taken. And by the cutest woman in the whole world.
Is that so? Well, I can tell she's one lucky gal if she's with you. Sorry to bother you.
Oh no, not at all. And, I wish you nothing but the best.
He said cutest woman.
Or how about this strip where Wailord decides to let Skitty join his D&D session? Oh, we all know what's coming. Male character decides to let female character join in his personal interests, only for female character to act obnoxious and annoying, and thus the male character learns to keep his personal interests to himself because men and women need to keep their own separate spaces, don't you know? And the strip almost goes in that direction. Skitty asks about LARPing, and then suggests that everyone wears costumes. Everyone should act humiliated and embarrassed by this, right?
Roll initiative!
Instead, everyone just seems to lean right into it and love it, actually. And oh, I know where this strip is going. Skitty is learning how to paint nails from a YouTube tutorial. But it's not her nails she's painting. She's painting Wailord's nails. Oh, this is an old as dirt trope. Female character forces male character to do something girly and feminine, and he's embarrassed about it because it's girly and feminine, and real men don't do girly and feminine unless they're one of them gays. But look at Wailord! Look at how much he loves his new nails! He just loves them so much! He's totally into it!
Ha ha ha! I'm going to be the prettiest girl at the ball.
His masculinity is anything but fragile. It's like those fathers who dress up as Disney princesses with their daughters and proudly dance and sing along with them on video. In fact, despite his comedically gargantuan size, Wailord is far from a toxic masculine stereotype. He is an adorable himbo, a soft and comfy marshmallow. He is kind and caring, affectionate towards Skitty, completely comfortable with his masculinity, and totally great with children. If you look up positive masculinity in the dictionary, you're probably going to find his face alongside these other characters. In fact, this entire strip is pleasantly progressive, far from giving every single female Pokemon character the exact same standard sexy hourglass figures. There's a diversity of characters with different body shapes, sizes, styles, gender and sexual identities, and even physical disabilities. Look at this male Primarina in a wheelchair. He's a big name celebrity in a wheelchair, and it's treated perfectly normal, as it should be. And what's great about all this diversity is just how natural it all is. There are plenty of LGBTQ characters, and they just exist. The author doesn't go out of his way to make a big fanfare about them, or use them to push some ham-fisted political message. These characters are just here and queer, and that's all you really need. In fact, the only strip that comes remotely close to pushing a message is where one of the band members of the EV9 girls comes out as trans. And everyone supports her, as they should. This strip is just, all the good stuff, just all of it. This is a wholesome webcomic about a wholesome couple with a wholesome relationship, and I love every bit of it. And perhaps the biggest reason I love it is because it's such a radical departure from how most couples, specifically heterosexual couples, are depicted in media. One of my favorite tropes are couples who just adore each other, unconditionally. The type of couples who have never left the honeymoon phase of their relationship and just shower each other with love and affection. The type of couples who you can just tell by the way they look at each other that they get busy frequently.
Look at her. I would die for her. I would kill for her. Either way, what bliss. Unhappy, darling?
Oh, yes. Yes, completely.
In fact, I love this trope so much that I incorporate it into my own work whenever I can. And, you know, it's a shame that for as much as heterosexual relationships have been treated as the status quo, that they're rarely portrayed in a positive light. And I know most people would argue that portraying relationship as anything but dysfunctional wouldn't be realistic. To that I say, who's asking for realism in fiction? Besides, can't you see this as a self-defeating cycle? We need to show couples as being toxic in media because couples in real life are toxic, and since couples are portrayed as toxic in media, we can't expect anything else in real life? That's just the capitalist realism speaking. A better world is possible. Healthy relationships are possible. Yes, they're not always sunshine and rainbows, but they're also not all storms in a teacup either. Dysfunction doesn't have to be the norm. The heteros do not need to be upsetteros. The straights can be okay. Maybe I'm just some guy who grew up with parents who hated each other so much that they slept in separate beds, in separate bedrooms, before they inevitably divorced. I have some issues. But if anything, we need to see more couples like those in Tinder Skitty. Couples who love each other, and love being in love with each other. Because who doesn't love seeing other people in love? I know I do. That's a long way of me saying I really love Tinder Skitty. I love Tinder Skitty. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. I especially want to wish a happy Valentine's to a very special couple that this video is dedicated to. Hi, Tom. Hi, Michaela. Congratulations on the engagement. Anyway, if you love this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and be sure to follow me on social media. And as always, if you enjoy good storytelling like I do, then you're sure to enjoy my fantasy series, The Light Prince, available on Amazon in paperback and ebook. Again, thank you for watching. Friendly reminder that Black Lives Matter, trans rights are human rights, and Jesus Christ is Lord.